Hey y'all, what is going on? What is going on? It's your girl, Melba Pearson, Melba for Miami, Melba for Justice, and it's time for another Mondays with Melba. So, the topic today is going to be all of the things I'm going to be watching for the year 2022. We have a ton of things to watch locally here in Miami. We have a lot happening statewide in Florida. And then, of course, on the national stage, there are a number of really high profile cases that are coming up. And I just need everybody to stay engaged, stay woke, because there's a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of politics and politricks. So I'm just going to give you a condensed list of what to look out for to, if you feel moved, which I hope you do, to take action. Call your legislators, call your state senators to, make sure that your views are heard with regards to these issues. Because a lot of times these bad bills get passed because nobody's paying attention. We don't know, right? So the goal here is to let you know some of the bad bills that are coming out and some of the things I'm going to be watching over the course of the next year for you to be empowered and be engaged. All right, so let's get started. I've got my list right here, so it's on. All right, so starting locally. So we're going to start in Miami Beach, right? So I've been recently appointed to the Black Affairs Advisory Committee of the City of Miami Beach. Very honored to be able to serve in that way, and also to be able, hopefully, to provide some solutions to some of the issues and concerns with regards to how South Beach welcomes visitors from around the country, around the world that look like me. Right. So it's been a very clear drama that's been going on for the past few years with regards to how tourists of color are being treated versus how other folks who come for high impact weekends are being treated. So I'm hopefully going to be able to be part of the solution in creating new ideas, programming, things like that, to be able to address some of the concerns we have here in our city. Also, on the Miami Beach front, think about this. So the city of Miami Beach is looking to expand their local court, right? So city of Miami Beach has a courthouse and they have gotten a prosecutor assigned just to their court because they feel that they weren't getting enough attention downtown, right? Okay, whatever. Be that as it may, that's where we are. Well, they want to expand the powers of that prosecutor to basically pick up cases that the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office dropped. And the types of cases they're thinking about are like disorderly conduct. So bar brawls, sort of the kind of charges that you get arrested for on spring break, right? That's basically the goal here, is that they want to have more control over what happens to people being charged during high impact weekends, spring break, urban beach week, things like that. So the problem with the city of Miami Beach deputizing their prosecutors to pick up cases that already have been dropped by the state attorney's office is as follows. Now, we all know Iran, so that's not, all of that aside, right? Prosecutors do not drop cases unless there's a lack of evidence, the victim, survivor, witnesses, whoever do not want to come forward, or there's constitutional issues, like it was a bad search, right? The cops did something wrong. Those are the three reasons generally why prosecutors drop a case. So for them to drop the case means that, okay, something's wrong here. So why would the city of Miami Beach be looking to push forward bad cases? Right? Because that's not justice. When you think about it in the broader context, right? You have somebody who comes here on spring break and they get arrested. They're going to go back home to wherever, Georgia, Montana, wherever it is. And are they really going to come back to face accountability? Wouldn't it just be better to give them a ticket right then and there while they're on spring break and make them spend a day cleaning the beach, right? Rather than try to waste taxpayer money and resources to push through a criminal case. Or vice versa. You have a survivor of crime that was here on spring break, went back home to Montana, California, whatever. And they're like, you know what? That thing was hella traumatizing. I'm not coming back to Florida. You have no survivor to testify what happened. You can't move forward. So, I think that's very a misguided policy that the commission has apparently unanimously voted on. But again, they unanimously voted on putting forward an ordinance that would allow people to get arrested for filming the police officers within 20 feet of them conducting an arrest. And then it all went sideways when a young African American man was videotaping a rough arrest. He was more than 20 feet away. And guess what? The cops turned around, arrested him, and beat him too. Right. So now the city of Miami commission had to be like, that didn't work. Oh, that didn't work as planned. Yeah, if you had asked somebody, we would have told you that was a bad idea. And now they had to pause, that ordinance, basically stop enforcement of that ordinance because of the issues that resulted from it. So hopefully there's still room to make sure that this does not go into effect, but it's very problematic. Also, what else I'm watching on a local level, this is more on a Miami-Dade front, is the ongoing saga with Art Acevedo, who was the former city of Miami police chief that was billed as the quote unquote Michael Jordan of police chiefs and lasted a whole hot 6 months because of politics and politricks in Miami, right? 3 of the commissioners basically hated him, and basically it was a wrap. So he had gone ahead and let the feds know that he wanted them to come down and launch an investigation. Now, that he had to publicizing that in a memo, which was problematic from the standpoint that the feds will usually put in somebody undercover to conduct an investigation. Kind of hard to do that when the cat's out the bag, right? So they couldn't pursue it from that perspective. But regardless, he still went ahead and sued, basically the city commission. He's just suing everybody, alleging wrongful termination and also claiming he's a whistleblower because he pointed out corruption and inappropriate activity at the City of Miami Police Department. So that's going to be very interesting as that unfolds, especially as depositions happen, which is, basically the opportunity for both sides to question each other's witnesses. So I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more of the dirty details of what's been going on there. And then also looking at it from the criminal standpoint, because, okay, he's filing a lawsuit, that's civil. That means he's trying to get money and basically clear his name for what happened. But then on the flip side, on the criminal side, well, did something illegal occur? And the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office has recused themselves from the matter, meaning that they're not going to be involved in investigation or prosecution. The statement is that one of the people in the office is related to somebody who may be a witness. It was very vague. We don't know, whatever the case may be. So now it's going to be the Broward State Attorney's Office under State Attorney Harold Pryor, who was just elected in 2020, is going to be the one who's going to be spearheading that investigation. So I'm pretty hopeful because of the fact that, number one, it's Broward, so they're going to be immune from a lot of the political pressures, I think. And again, I'm going to be curious to see if charges end up getting filed and against who. Because a few people in there are long overdue for their comeuppance. So definitely going to be watching that closely. Now, moving to the statewide level, legislative session started on January 11th. It goes until March 11th, unless, they have some issues and they can't resolve a few things. And then the session may expand for, go on for another 2 weeks or so. So we're in the middle of legislative session and bills have already been filed and there are some doozies in the mix. So first off, they have a bill that's Senate Bill 242, and the House bill is House Bill 57. And that attacks critical race theory and also we call it a don't say gay bill, right? And basically what it does is that it creates penalties for workplaces, schools, universities, anyone who is sort of like in that educational capacity or has, offers CLEs, not CLEs necessarily, but, offers continuing credits, that sort of thing, from talking about critical race theory and from talking about LGBTQ issues. That's hella problematic, y'all, because at the end of the day, it's about teaching accurate history, right? We have to understand how the events from the past formed policy and use that to make sure that we don't repeat the same mistakes from the past. If we're not all on the same page as to the history of this country, what are we doing? Right? It's like the Germans turn around saying, well, we're never going to teach about the Holocaust because that's going to make, our young German kids feel bad. They actually do the exact opposite in Germany, where they insist on teaching the Holocaust and having all sorts of uh, memorials and things like that, so that people know we messed up hardcore. And it wasn't just necessarily the Nazis, it was the good people who sat there and was like, well, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to stand up. You know, a lot of people allowed these policies to come into place that resulted in the Holocaust. It didn't just happen overnight, right? It was a buildup. And if you're not teaching people that history, how are they going to know that? And how are they going to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Because the goal of learning history is, because those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it, period. So this is just ridiculous. This is utterly ridiculous. And it's just an attempt to rewrite history in a way that is inconsistent with reality. And it's really disturbing. So definitely a no on that one. Also, I touched on this earlier about filming police officers. Another bill was introduced, HB House Bill 11 and Senate Bill 1872, which criminalizes filming the police within 30 feet. So I touched on this earlier in talking about Miami Beach. Miami Beach had an ordinance where it was illegal to film the police 20 feet away. So you have to be at least 20 feet away from a police officer if you're going to film them doing an arrest or anything like that. The statewide bill says 30 feet. It's still problematic because, hey, here's the reality. Ain't nobody sitting out there with a tape measure being like, okay, there's a police officer. Shh. Let me see how far away I'm standing before I commence to filming, right? Nobody's going to do that. I think it has to be about reasonableness. You can't be on top of a police officer while they're executing their duties. Period. End of story, right? But if you are across the street and you're literally not on top of the police officer interfering with them executing their duties, then what's the problem, right? And what is really disturbing about this is that we saw what a pivotal role the cell phone footage played in the murder of George Floyd and bringing Derek Chauvin to justice. The trials of the remaining 3 police officers that were involved in the murder of George Floyd, that trial already started this week, and that's federal trial for those officers, and the state trial is going to start in June. That cell phone footage is going to be front and center again. So now you basically want to take away this amazing tool that civilians have to hold law enforcement accountable. Especially, we have seen many stories where some members of law enforcement will turn off their body cameras, in the aftermath of an incident to be able to make sure that certain conversations aren't being captured or certain footage isn't captured, right? The cell phone can be another neutral piece of evidence that the jury can consider. So this is incredibly problematic and is open to abuse. So this is another bill that has to be a no. It has to fail. Also, abortion access. We're already seeing what's happening in the Supreme Court, the debate around the Texas abortion ban. We're seeing something similar here in Florida, where 2 bills were introduced. One was a 6-week ban on abortions, and a second, which is the one that's moving a little bit faster, is the 15-week ban, right? So the 6-week ban is HB 167, and the 15-week ban is SB, Senate Bill 146 / House Bill 5. Right. So just giving you the numbers in case you want to look it up and read it for yourself. I highly suggest that you do. But a 15-week ban is problematic as well because of the fact that, again, folks don't always know they're pregnant right away. Right. I mean, 15 weeks, that's like 3 months. I'm not going to get into the birds and the bees right now, but, it takes a minute to realize that, wait a minute, maybe I should test. Maybe I'm pregnant. And by the time you realize it and you get in and get an appointment, now the 15 weeks have passed, and now you're going to be in a situation where you can't get an abortion. And, that's not good. And again, I understand people, feeling very strongly pro or against abortion. It's fine. But listen, at the end of the day, it's about choice. If you don't want to have an abortion, if you don't believe in it, then don't have one. It's really that simple, right? But to force people to have abortions and you don't know what their story is, you don't know what their situation is. People make all kinds of assumptions. You don't know if it's sexual assault. You don't know if the person's in a domestic violence relationship. You don't know if they're just, financially unable to do so. You don't know if they know that their child's going to have horrible birth defects and they know they can't, support the child and give them the care that they need. There's a million reasons why people decide to have an abortion. So, and most importantly, Roe v. Wade did not legalize, or it legalized abortion, but wasn't the floodgates of people going and having abortions, right? People were always having abortions. The reality was folks stopped dying from abortions once Roe v. Wade passed. So to roll all that back, understand people are still going to go have an abortion. The wealthy folks will get on a plane. They'll go, and just like back in the day, they'll go on a little vacation somewhere for 2 weeks and come back with, a tummy tuck and having had an abortion, right? That's going to happen. It's going to be the poorer folks and the middle class folks who really can't afford to take the time off from work and to go on this luxury vacation to have an abortion that are going to be impacted. And then you're going to have the rise of the back alley butchers, and people are going to start dying again. So, again, this is big time no. Also going to be watching the whole discussion around the creation of a voter protection force or an election force, because the governor has come out and made statements that he wants to do that, as well as create his own little army, like a Florida-wide police force. A whole lot of weird stuff that's sounding very authoritarian, not cool. And at the end of the day, it's a solution looking for a problem, because the governor and others came out after the last election in 2020 saying it was like one of the smoothest elections in Florida history, no issues. Everybody who wanted to vote was able to vote. So then if there was no fraud, why do we need an election protection force? Again, solution looking for a problem. And it probably is hiding the underlying desire to basically disenfranchise people. Because that's what it's going to turn into. If there's no fraud, if there's no problems existing, then you're going to be looking for problems or creating problems to justify your existence. So again, hard no, going to be watching that very closely. Now, 2022 is a huge election year, right? We have a ton of stuff coming on the ballot. We have House seats that are coming open. We've got redistricting that's creating new seats altogether. We've got elections for the seats that got vacated as people tried to run for the late Representative Alcee Hastings congressional seat that, was won by Sheila McCormick, and congratulations to her. Sheila McCormick Shirless, congratulations to her. So, all of those seats are up. You also have a U.S. Senate race where U.S. Senator Marco Rubio is being challenged by Val Demings, and that election is going to be coming up in November. The governor is on the ballot this year as well, faced off against somebody from the Democratic side. It'll either be Charlie Crist, Nikki Fried, or Annette Taddeo. And this is not set in order of preference. I'm just naming off the candidates. And so we have all that going on. So we have the primary for who's going to face Governor DeSantis in November. That primary is going to be in August. So we have to make sure that we're staying vigilant and we vote in August and then vote again in November with regards to that. Also, a number of judges are on the ballot. Folks keep sleeping on judges. I'm going to be bringing some judicial candidates on Mondays with Melba over the course of the next few months so that you can start to get familiar with some of the judges that are running and some of the candidates that are running. But folks sleep on judges until something goes wrong, until there's a high profile case. And then it's like, oh, I can't believe that judge gave that sentence or made that ruling or whatever. Y'all, judges are an elected position. So we have to make sure to know who's on the ballot and vote accordingly. Now, judge is a little bit more difficult because it's in Florida, it's a nonpartisan seat. So it's not like, hi, I'm a Republican and I'm running for judge, or hi, I'm a Democrat running for judge. You can't talk about what party you belong to. So it has to be, judges talk about their roles in very general terms because they ethically cannot speak about how they may potentially rule in a case, right? So they have to talk super general. But at the same token, there's still ways to, once you learn more about what they did for where they practiced law before, right? Did they do public service? Did they work for a nonprofit? Did they work for a big firm? What was their area of expertise? What organizations do they belong to, right? So there's different questions and things that you can learn about a judicial candidate that can help inform your decision as to whether or not you should vote for them. So there's that aspect. So I'm going to be watching that very closely. Also, I'm going to be watching the University of Florida lawsuit that was on behalf of several professors who were prevented from testifying as expert witnesses in a voting case that involved the state of Florida. They, of course, alleged that this was a way of taking away their First Amendment rights and, basically chilling their free speech, which is problematic, right? And since UF is a public university, it's a state university, that makes them basically a government actor, and the government cannot take away your First Amendment rights to free speech, right? So that lawsuit is going on right now. That's going to have a lot of implications for professors around the country that work for public universities and what they're able to do and how they're able to speak out. It means a lot with regards to the kind of professors you're going to get, because really the kind of, not like the side hustle, like not in a bad way, but the hustle is like, you as a professor, you write, you become an expert witness, you they have a side legal practice. There's different other things that professors can do to help supplement their income, because reality is you're not going to get rich in academia, right? That's just the reality. Anybody who's saying that, oh yeah, I'm a millionaire balling because I'm a professor, yeah, no, they're lying to you, right? You make a decent living, but you're not, if you're still paying school loans, if you got a family, the money can get a little thin, right? So you supplement your income by doing these expert type activities, and it also boosts the university's status, because now the university can be like, oh yes, we have experts that have been featured on CNN, on Fox Business, on CNBC, et cetera, and that really boosts the prestige of the university. So that's usually something that universities want you to do. They want you to write and do all of these things. So it's very interesting to see how this plays out in UF, because of the fact that, these professors were going to be testifying against the state of Florida, giving their expert opinion, saying that, the voter scheme that was in place was inappropriate. So going to be watching that as well. And lastly, from a statewide level, going to be watching redistricting. The governor went ahead and submitted his own redistricting map, basically slicing and dicing. And of course, he did this on the eve of Dr. King Day. Rude. He went on the eve of Dr. King Day and basically eliminated 2 whole Black districts. Okay, why? Oh, wait. Oh, because you didn't think they would vote for you? So that's why you just take away their voting power? Okay. So anyway, he submits this map, and also it is not the norm for the governor to submit a redistricting map. That is done by the legislature. They go through and they fight back and forth, and every party wants to kind of preserve what they have, and then they come up with a final map. So going to watch that and see what happens. At this juncture, it seems like the legislature is not going to follow his map, and they're creating their own. So, of course, I'm curious to know if this is one of the things where, sort of like how we had with HB1, the anti-protest bill, where basically he released a version about a year in advance that was incredibly egregious and horrible and hardcore. And then what ended up passing was much milder. So, I don't know if that's the psychology there, that he's putting out something really horrible, so it's going to make the Senate version, whatever it is, look less bad. I don't know. But going to watch that and see how all of that plays out. From a national perspective now, going to be watching the Supreme Court because there's going to be some doozy rulings happening this year, including the case with regards to abortion rights, including now affirmative action. They're going to be taking up a case. They announced that today around affirmative action. So going to be interesting to see what the arguments are there. Looking at voting rights, we know that voting rights died thanks to Manchin and Semena, Senators Manchin and Semena over last week, but can another version be a compromise? Can something else happen on that? Going to see if we get any traction there, but feeling a little hopeless on that one because of the fact that we're going into midterms now. And if we can't get any agreement at this point, I think it might be a wrap because now all the U.S. Congress people and stuff are going to have to be back in their home districts campaigning. So, we're getting to the end of anything productive getting done. Also, there is a lawsuit pending on behalf of some people incarcerated in Arkansas that were basically used as human guinea pigs for Invectibin. So the, quote unquote, COVID treatment, they were basically given it against their will. Not okay. So watching that lawsuit and going to see how that pans out, because that, number one, is cruel and unusual punishment. Number two, it really feels like, the Tuskegee experiment where, people were unwillingly and unknowingly injected with syphilis just to see what would happen, right? Like people aren't guinea pigs, right? You have to, when you're doing research and things like that, there are very strict guidelines that you have to make sure that the people know what they're signing up for, know what the risks are. All of that's been disclosed to them, and if there's a possibility they don't understand, like they're not included, that sort of thing. So that is really disturbing and going to keep a very close eye on that case. Also, the District of Columbia Attorney General Karl Racine has filed suit against the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys for their role in the January 6th riot and coup attempt. The goal here is that he's going to be using civil means to basically bankrupt them. It's been effective for the Ku Klux Klan. A sister in Alabama was able to basically bankrupt the Alabama Ku Klux Klan for their actions in lynching her son. And she basically filed a suit in civil court with the Southern Poverty Law Center back in 1984 and got a $7 million judgment that bankrupted the Klan. So AG Karl Racine is suing the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, for basically violating people's civil rights and also, just basically causing mayhem, right? So if he is successful and there is a financial settlement or financial verdict, then the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers would probably have to pony up. And then that could, if all of their assets are taken, that could be the end of them. So definitely keeping a close eye on that. And lastly, as I touched on earlier, the trial for the remaining 3 officers involved in the death of George Floyd has already started. It is a federal trial. So this is federal charges that they violated the civil rights of George Floyd. Derek Chauvin also faced those charges, but he pled guilty and has basically got a 25-year sentence, along the same lines of what he got in the state case. So we'll see what happens there. I'm doing some legal commentary on that for the Law and Crime Network tomorrow, as well as for Court TV later this week and next week. So definitely tune in there. And yeah, we'll see what happens. It's, we're going through it again, right? We're going through it again. So that's the story. So thank you all for tuning in. Next week, I'm going to have on Jasmine Rogers to talk a little bit more about what's happening in the Florida legislature and the grassroots efforts around beating back some of the bad bills, as well as uplifting some of the positive bills that have been filed this session that we hope will move. So with all that, take good care. Remember to like, comment, and share. And I will see you next Monday. Bye, y'all.